Let's talk about something that can feel incredibly lonely. That feeling of being completely and utterly trapped by your own thoughts. You know that feeling, right? It's like this relentless internal battle that just won't quit. But what if the whole way we think about this struggle is, well, just wrong? That's what we're going to get into today. So you've probably heard of the term pure O, which stands for purely obsessional OCD. And I mean, the name itself kind of says it all, right? It suggests it's all about the obsessions, those sticky, unwanted thoughts or images, without any of the physical stuff, like hand washing or checking things over and over. It seems to make sense. Okay, but here's where we flip the script. That term, pure O, it's actually a misnomer, a complete misunderstanding, because the compulsions, oh, they are there. They're just not what you'd expect. Right, so here's the crucial part. The compulsions in this form of OCD are very, very real. They're just invisible. They're happening inside your mind where no one else can see them. And these hidden compulsions can be super sneaky. I'm talking about stuff like mentally replaying a conversation a dozen times just to make sure you didn't say something wrong. Or maybe you try to cancel out a bad thought by forcing a good one. It could even be constantly seeking reassurance, asking a friend, "Are you sure you're not mad at me?" Or just falling down a Google rabbit hole. And avoidance, that's a huge one. Just steering clear of anything that might set off the thoughts. And this quote, wow, it just hits the nail on the head. Compulsions are the fuel. Every single time you do one of these secret rituals, you're basically pouring gasoline on the fire. You're teaching your brain that, yep, that thought was dangerous and you had to do something about it. And that's the vicious cycle we have to break. So, how in the world do you break a cycle like that? Well, we do it with the gold standard treatment for OCD. It's called exposure and response prevention, or just ERP for short. So what is ERP? At its core, the idea is actually pretty straightforward, even if doing it isn't always easy. It's got two main parts. First, exposure. That's where you intentionally, on purpose, face the thoughts and situations you're afraid of. Then comes the second part, response prevention. And that's where you make the conscious choice not to do the compulsion that your brain is screaming at you to do. But you know what? There's actually a third step. A step that takes this whole process from just being a technique to being truly transformative. After you expose yourself to the fear and you stop the compulsion, you add the magic ingredient. And this final step, this magic ingredient, is so important and honestly so weird sounding at first that we need to give it its own section. Here it is. The magic ingredient is to do the absolute opposite of what your OCD wants. It's not just about resisting the urge. It's about actively, defiantly running towards what the OCD is telling you to run away from. Let's just look at this comparison because it makes it so clear. OCD wants you to run and avoid. So ERP asks you to approach the fear. OCD wants you to neutralize a scary thought, to make it smaller. ERP asks you to actually magnify it, make it bigger. OCD is desperate for relief and certainty, and ERP, it demands that you learn to sit with that uncomfortable feeling of uncertainty. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait a second. The goal is to make myself feel worse? It sounds completely backward, right? Totally unpleasant and, just wrong. So yeah, that brings us to the big question. Why on earth would you intentionally do something that jacks up your anxiety? The answer is a fascinating process called habituation. Think of it like this. By leaning into the fear and refusing to do the ritual, you're sending a powerful new message to your brain. You're teaching it through direct experience that these thoughts are not actually a threat. They're just noise. They don't mean anything, and they don't require a response. Okay, so that's the theory, but what does this actually look like in real life? Let's make it more concrete. This table lays it out beautifully. So imagine the fear is a bad or blasphemous religious image. OCD demands that you neutralize it with a good one. The ERP action, the opposite, might be to actually draw that bad image or even make it the background on your phone. Or what if the fear is, I said something terrible? Instead of replaying the conversation, you just agree with the fear. You say, yep, I probably did say it. You do the exact opposite of trying to get relief. So as we start to wrap this up, what's the single most important thing to take away from all of this? It all boils down to this. A good, effective exposure isn't just about facing something scary. It's about facing that scary thing while completely letting go of the need for relief. You have to let the anxiety be there without doing anything to fix it or make it go away.
And let's be real, this is not easy. It takes a ton of courage, it takes practice, but the more you do it, the more you stick with it, the weaker OCD's voice becomes, and the more of your life you get back.
So I want to leave you with this one question to think about. The next time that urge to do a compulsion hits, just pause for a second and ask yourself, what is the absolute polar opposite of what my OCD wants for me in this moment? Because the answer to that question, well, that could be